The planet was silent, covered in ruins and dust. For centuries, no one had walked these broken streets. No one had spoken in the empty cities. It was said that this place once belonged to the humans, but humans were erased long ago. Every child across the galaxy was taught that humans were dangerous, too strong, too clever, too wild to control. That is why the Great Alien Alliance had destroyed them, burning Earth and hunting down every last survivor until none remained. Or so they believed. On the edge of the forgotten world, a small alien scout ship entered orbit. The crew was young, nervous, and not ready for legends to come alive. Their mission was simple: to search for old technology, to find anything of value. But as their ship circled the dead planet, the sensors picked up something strange. It was a signal, weak, old, and broken, but still alive. The captain frowned and leaned closer to the glowing screen. "This is impossible," he whispered. "The frequency is human." The crew froze. Everyone in the galaxy knew human signals. They were banned, erased from archives. To hear one now, after centuries, was like hearing the voice of a ghost. The youngest officer shook his head, his scales turning pale. "Sir, maybe it's a glitch, maybe it's background noise." But the captain's hands were shaking as he replied, "No, this is real. I studied these codes in secret. This is a human distress call." The ship descended lower into the atmosphere, engines roaring through thick clouds of dust. Below, the surface was dark and burned, filled with the skeletons of towers that once touched the sky. The crew's eyes widened as they stared through the windows. This was their home, one whispered. This was where it all ended. As they landed near the ruins of an ancient city, the signal grew louder. A repeating message, broken but clear. "Survivor, still here, waiting." The words sent a chill through every alien heart. They stepped out of the ship, weapons in their hands, scanning the streets. The silence pressed on their ears. Every shadow looked like it might move. Every pile of rubble seemed to hide something watching them. The captain gave an order, his voice low. "Stay alert. This is no ordinary ruin." They walked deeper into the city. Their boots crunched over broken glass. Old human symbols still glowed faintly on shattered walls. One soldier touched the letters with trembling fingers. "They never faded," he whispered. "Their mark is still here." Then, without warning, the signal stopped. The air grew heavy. The crew turned in every direction, their weapons raised. The captain's eyes narrowed. "He's here," he said quietly. "The survivor is here." From the shadows of a collapsed tower, a figure stepped forward, tall, scarred, and wrapped in dark clothing. His face was pale under the dust, his eyes sharp and cold. The aliens froze, unable to move. They knew what he was the moment they saw him. He was human. For a long moment, no one spoke. The silence stretched, heavy like a storm about to break. Then the man's lips curved into the smallest of smiles. His voice was rough, filled with centuries of hatred. "You thought you destroyed us," he said, "but one remains." The aliens raised their weapons, but their hands were shaking. The stories were true. Humans were not only strong, but fearless. Even alone, this one stood tall against them all. The captain tried to speak, his words stumbling out. This is not possible. You were erased, your kind was erased." The man's eyes burned like fire. "Impossible," he repeated, his voice low but deadly. "Nothing is impossible for a human." He stepped closer, the sound of his boots echoing in the ruins. "Your people erased my world, my family, my future," he said. "But I survived, and now you will pay." The aliens backed away, fear crawling through their bones. The survivor reached into his cloak and pulled out a device. It was old but glowing with power, human technology that should not exist. He pressed a button, and the ground shook. Hidden machines awakened beneath the ruins. A low hum filled the air, like the growl of some sleeping beast finally rising. The captain shouted for retreat, but the human only laughed, a sound that echoed through the dead city. "You came searching for ghosts," he said, "and now you found one." His voice turned cold. But this ghost will not rest until every one of you remembers what humans were capable of. The ruins lit up with ancient lights. The city that had once died seemed alive again. And standing in the middle of it all, one man faced the galaxy. One survivor. One human, ready to make them all pay. The crew stumbled back as the human stepped closer. The ruins around them seemed alive with his presence, as if the city itself had been waiting for his return. Dust swirled around his boots, and his shadow stretched long against the broken walls. Every alien soldier felt a weight pressing on their chest, a weight not from the air, but from fear itself. No one had ever seen a living human before. They had read about them, studied warnings, heard legends whispered in training camps. But the galaxy had agreed long ago that humans were gone, erased, destroyed so completely that even their memory was a danger. And yet, here stood one, alive, breathing, glaring at them with eyes that seemed older than time. The captain tried to steady his weapon, but the barrel shook. "Stay back," he ordered, though his voice cracked. The human tilted his head, almost amused. "You point your toys at me," he said, "but your ancestors once used fleets, fire, and endless armies, and even then they feared us." The crew exchanged nervous glances. Every word he spoke carried weight, like iron chains dragging them into a past they wanted to forget. The youngest soldier whispered, "He should not exist. This is against history, against everything we were told." The survivor's cold smile deepened. "History lies," he answered. "The truth is standing in front of you." He raised the device again, and sparks of energy crawled across the ruins. Ancient machines hidden beneath the rubble responded to his command. These were weapons of the old world, relics left behind when humanity had fallen. But instead of silence, they were alive, waiting for the hand of a human to guide them once more. A deep rumble echoed under their feet. The ground cracked open, and glowing blue light spilled upward. The crew staggered back, weapons still raised, but their courage fading fast. The captain barked orders, trying to sound strong. "Hold your ground. He is only one man." The human's eyes narrowed. "One man is enough," he replied. Before they could fire, one of the ruins lit up like a beacon. A beam of energy shot into the sky, piercing the clouds. The ship they had landed in screamed with alarms as its systems shorted out. Panels exploded, smoke poured into the air, and within seconds the vessel was nothing but a burning shell. The crew gasped in terror. Their way home was gone, destroyed by a simple command from the survivor. He stepped forward again, his voice low but filled with a deadly calm. "Now you are trapped, just like I was trapped for centuries." The youngest soldier cried out, "What do you want from us?" The man's gaze cut through them like a blade. "What do I want?" he echoed. "I want you to remember." He took another step, and every alien felt the heat of his presence. "I want you to carry this message to your masters, to your fleets, to every world that believed humans were gone," he said. "Tell them a mistake was made. Tell them their nightmare still breathes. And tell them their punishment begins now." The captain tried to hold his ground. "You cannot fight the galaxy," he said, though even he did not believe the words. The survivor's smile returned, sharp and cruel. "I don't need to fight the galaxy," he whispered. "I only need to remind it." The ruins shifted again, and this time mechanical drones rose from beneath the rubble. They were small, floating machines, scarred with age, but still functional. Their eyes glowed red as they circled above the survivor, forming a deadly halo. The alien soldiers raised their rifles, but their fingers would not pull the triggers. The fear in their hearts was stronger than their training. The survivor's voice grew colder. "Your alliance thought humans were too dangerous to exist," he said. "They believed extinction was mercy for themselves. But you should have finished the job, because now I am all that remains, and I carry every memory, every wound, every fury of my people." He raised his hand, and the drones spread into formation. One fired a beam that cut through a ruined tower, the stone collapsing in fire and ash. The aliens stumbled, dust choking their lungs. The captain shouted, "Retreat, retreat now." The soldiers ran, stumbling over broken streets, their boots echoing in the empty city. But no matter how far they moved, they could feel his eyes on them. The human did not chase. He only stood in the ruins, his drones above him, his cloak shifting in the wind. And as they fled toward the wastelands, his voice followed, carried by machines, amplified into the air like thunder. "Run, tell them, let the galaxy know," he roared. "Humanity is not finished. It has only begun again." The words struck deep into their bones. For the first time in centuries, alien soldiers carried back a message of fear. The legend was alive. The ghost of Earth had returned, and he was ready to make them all pay. The alien scouts did not stop running until the ruins were nothing but shadows behind them. Their hearts pounded, their weapons clutched tightly but useless in their trembling hands. The captain forced them into formation, his voice sharp though fear cracked it. "We return to orbit," he said. "We report this at once. This is bigger than us." But there was no orbit to return to. Their ship lay in ruins, smoke rising into the poisoned sky. Stranded on a dead world, they had no escape. And yet, escape was not what the survivor wanted. He had let them live for a reason. They carried the message of his existence. And that message would travel farther than any weapon. As night fell, the crew huddled near a broken plaza. The youngest soldier could not stay silent. Why was he alive? He asked. Why did our alliance fail to erase them? The captain stared into the fire, his scaled hands pressed against his face. The alliance never told the full truth, he admitted. They only told us what kept us obedient. The soldiers leaned closer, desperate for answers. The captain's voice dropped low, like a confession. Centuries ago, during the Great War, the humans were winning, he said. They were fewer in number, but stronger, faster, and they adapted faster than any species had ever seen. No matter what weapons we built, they found a way to turn them back against us. The Council feared them, feared that soon the galaxy itself would be ruled by humans. The fire crackled, shadows dancing across frightened faces. So the alliance united. The captain continued. Species that had once been enemies became allies for one purpose: extermination. Planets were burned, colonies erased, every human hunted down. It took generations, but at last, the alliance declared victory. They swore that not one human remained alive. The youngest soldier shook his head. "Then who is he?" he whispered. "If all were destroyed, how can one still breathe?" The captain's eyes darkened. "There were rumors," he said, "stories buried in secret archives, that rebels from within the alliance hid a few humans, kept them alive for revenge. They believed that someday the galaxy would pay for what was done." The crew shivered at the thought. Could it be true that someone had preserved the most dangerous species in history? Could it be that the survivor was not an accident, but a weapon waiting for the right moment to awaken? Far away, in the ruins of the city, the human walked alone through the streets. His eyes scanned the collapsed towers, his hand brushed against cracked stone. Every corner was a memory, every shadow a grave. He whispered names under his breath, names long gone, but never forgotten. They thought humanity was erased, but within him burned every loss, every betrayal, every scream of fire raining from the skies. He paused before a shattered monument, a statue half buried in rubble. It had once shown a human family standing proud, reaching for the stars. Now their faces were broken, their dreams scattered in dust. The survivor knelt, his fingers tracing the stone. "I carry you all," he said softly, "and I will not rest until justice is done." From the rubble nearby, machines stirred, not just drones, but databanks, fragments of old human records. He connected his device, and holograms sparked to life. Images of battles long forgotten filled the air. Armies of humans in armor, fleets of human ships carving through space. Voices of leaders speaking with fire in their words. The survivor watched, his heart heavy but fierce. "This is what they feared," he murmured, and they were right to fear it. Meanwhile, the alien soldiers argued by their dying fire. Some wanted to hide, to stay silent, and pray the survivor never found them again. Others demanded they try to repair the wreckage of their ship. But the captain silenced them with a raised hand. "You fools," he said, "you do not understand. It does not matter if we live or die here. What matters is that he lives, and that the galaxy will soon know." The soldiers looked at him with horror. "You mean he will not stop?" The captain nodded slowly, his eyes reflecting the flames. "He is human, and humans never stop." The survivor stood on a high tower that night, watching the alien fire burn in the distance. He did not approach. He did not kill them. He simply let them live with the truth. Because fear was the greatest weapon, and now it was spreading. The galaxy believed humans were a memory. But memories had teeth, and one had just bitten back. And somewhere, deep beneath the ruins, old machines hummed to life. Machines built to preserve more than just weapons. Machines that carried the DNA of species once thought lost. The survivor placed his hand on the console, feeling the pulse of life within. "Soon," he whispered, "you will return, and the galaxy will learn what impossible truly means." The stars above the ruined city flickered as if listening, and the legend of humanity, once buried in ashes, began to rise again. The ruins slept under a pale sky, but within them the survivor did not rest. He moved like a shadow through the wreckage, silent but filled with purpose. The alien soldiers thought themselves safe by the fire, but he had allowed them to live only as messengers. His true war was not with them. It was with the galaxy that believed itself secure. Far beneath the city, the machines obeyed his command. Ancient human systems that had once defended Earth flickered back to life. Holograms of battle plans stretched across broken walls. Weapons that had been hidden in vaults unlocked for the first time in centuries. He was no longer one man with anger. He was one man with an arsenal. The survivor studied the alien scouts from afar. He could have ended them easily, but fear was a sharper blade than death. He wanted them to carry the story of what they had seen, so he vanished into the night, leaving them haunted by his shadow. High above, the wreckage of their ship still smoked in the sky. The survivor climbed into its broken frame, stripping it for parts. Alien technology was fragile, predictable. Human hands turned it into something deadlier. He fused alien systems with old human cores, and from fire and metal, he built his first weapon of war. When dawn broke, the alien soldiers awoke to the sound of thunder. Not from the sky, but from the ruins. The ground trembled beneath their boots. They looked up to see a massive defense turret rising from the earth. It had been buried under the city for generations. Now it obeyed a single human voice. The captain shouted for retreat, but there was nowhere to run. The turret locked onto their scouting drone in the sky. A single blast of energy cut it from the heavens. The wreckage crashed into the sand with a scream of fire. The soldiers stared in shock, their scales pale with terror. That was one shot, one whisper, just one. The survivor stepped onto the plaza where the turret glowed. His cloak billowed in the smoke, his scarred face lit by the blue fire of his weapon. "You see now," he said, his voice echoing across the ruins. "Humans do not die quietly." The soldiers raised their rifles, their hands trembling. The captain barked orders, but his voice carried no courage. The humans simply stood there, unshaken, unafraid. "You are not my enemies," he said. "You are witnesses. You will live to tell them what you saw. You will tell them a human fought back." And then, without warning, he turned his weapon not on them, but on the horizon. Far in the distance, another scout ship had entered the atmosphere. The survivor raised his device, and the turret roared. The alien ship exploded in the sky, torn apart in seconds. The shockwave rattled the ruins, glass and stone shattering around them. The surviving crew fell to their knees, unable to believe their eyes. One man, alone, had destroyed an entire vessel before it could fire. Legends had said humans could bring down armies. Now, they understood those legends were truth. The captain stared at him, his voice breaking. "You are only one. You cannot fight all of us." The survivor's gaze was like steel. "One is enough," he said. The turret sank back into the ruins, its job done. The survivor vanished again into the shadows. But his voice carried across the plaza. "You thought extinction made you safe," he called. "Now you will learn what it means to fear the impossible." The soldiers huddled together, their weapons limp in their hands. They knew they were alive only because he allowed it. They knew they had seen something no one else in the galaxy believed possible. And they knew that if he could bring one weapon back from the ashes, he could bring more. Above them, the stars looked the same, calm and distant. But for the first time in centuries, those stars carried a new danger. A single human had declared war not with armies, but with truth and terror. And in the broken ruins of a forgotten city, the first strike of humanity's return had begun. The alien scouts carried his message. They did not want to, but they had no choice. The survivor had spared them, and that mercy weighed heavier than death. They staggered across the wastelands until another patrol found them. Their voices trembled as they spoke, repeating the same words again and again. "He lives, a human lives." The news traveled faster than light. Whispers moved from ship to ship, from station to station. It spread through colonies and markets, through war councils and military barracks. Everywhere the same sentence echoed. "Impossible, a human has returned." On one world, a merchant dropped his cargo when he heard the rumor. He remembered the stories his grandfather told. Stories of human fleets tearing through battle lines. Stories of warriors who fought even when their bodies were broken. To him, the thought of one human alive was worse than an army. On another world, a council gathered in secret chambers. The leaders of the Alliance sat in a circle, their faces pale and grim. Some demanded silence. "We cannot allow this rumor to spread." One hissed, "Fear will undo us faster than war." But others shouted back, "If it is true, if even one human breathes, then the Alliance is in danger." Arguments shook the chamber. One voice cut through the noise. It was an elder, a veteran of the Great War, his skin lined with age, his eyes hard with memory. "I fought them," he said, his voice cold. "I saw what they could do. If one survived, then destruction follows. We must destroy him before the galaxy remembers its fear." But already, fear was rising. The message spread not only among rulers, but among common people. Workers whispered of humanity's strength. Soldiers muttered that their weapons would not be enough. Even slaves in chains spoke of hope. For many species had lived under the Alliance's iron rule. To them, the return of a human was not terror, but salvation. In the ruins of the dead city, the survivor knew this. He watched the stars and listened to intercepted signals. He heard the panic, the anger, the disbelief. A thin smile crossed his face. "Good," he whispered. "Let them fear me." He walked through the underground chambers where ancient machines now obeyed his hand. Each day, he reactivated another weapon, another drone, another memory of a dead world. The city was no longer silent. It breathed with him. It grew with his rage. But he did not fight alone. He had begun reaching out. Old frequencies carried his voice beyond the ruins. And those who suffered under the Alliance heard him. On slave ships, on mining colonies, on worlds where freedom had died long ago, they listened. They listened to the voice of the last human. And many whispered back, offering loyalty, offering hope. The Alliance noticed this. Reports flooded in. Rebellions growing, small uprisings breaking chains. Everywhere the rumor spread, courage followed. Not because people had seen him, but because they believed. Belief was more dangerous than any weapon. And the survivor knew it. In the council halls, fear turned to anger. "We cannot allow this myth to live," one leader spat. "We will send fleets. We will crush him before he becomes a symbol." Another leader shook his head. "You do not understand. He is already a symbol. Even if we kill him, the legend will remain. And so the debate raged. Silence or war, fear or denial. But outside their chambers, the galaxy had already chosen. The galaxy remembered. Back in the ruins, the survivor stood before a mirror of cracked glass. His reflection showed scars, hollow eyes, and a body hardened by centuries of survival. He touched the glass, his voice a whisper. They called us monsters, they called us threats, but they were right about one thing. He turned, his cloak sweeping the dust behind him. Humans were never meant to bow. The drones hovered above him, their red eyes glowing like blood. The city hummed with life, its ancient machines waiting for his command. And in the dark of night, his words carried once again across hidden channels. To every world enslaved, to every voice silenced, to every child told that humans are gone, he declared, "Know this, I live, and I will fight, and soon you will rise with me." His voice spread like fire. To some it was terror, to others it was hope, but to all it was the truth. Humanity was not finished, and the galaxy trembled, knowing the storm had only just begun. The galaxy did not have to wait long. The survivor had been patient for centuries, but now his patience was gone. He had tested his machines, rebuilt old weapons, and sharpened his fury. Now it was time for war. It began with whispers of vanishing ships. An Alliance patrol entered the dead zone near the ruins. They sent out signals, calm and confident. Then silence. Hours passed, then days. The patrol never returned. All that remained was wreckage drifting through the void, torn apart by weapons no one could recognize. The council tried to keep it quiet, but silence was impossible. More fleets disappeared, more stations burned. Messages cut off mid-sentence, alarms echoing across channels. Everywhere the same rumor spread. The human has struck. At first they laughed. How could one man do this? But soon the laughter died, because the evidence was everywhere. Scorched metal, empty outposts, dead fleets floating in the dark, and no enemy to see, only a shadow. The survivor moved like a ghost between the stars. He used old human war strategies. Hit fast, vanish faster. He attacked where they were weakest. He struck not to conquer, but to terrify. Every battle left survivors, but only enough to tell the story. He wanted his name carried farther than his weapons could reach. And soon he had one. They called him the Ghost of Earth. The name spread across systems. Children whispered it in fear. Slaves whispered it in hope. Soldiers spoke it with shaking voices. The Ghost of Earth had returned, and no wall, no fleet, no power could stop him. The survivor listened to these whispers through intercepted signals. He did not smile. This was not joy, but purpose. He carried every scar of his people, and now he gave those scars back to the galaxy. One night, on a mining world, the oppressed rose up. They painted human symbols on walls, symbols long forbidden. The guards panicked, calling for reinforcements. But reinforcements never came. Their ships had already been destroyed by the ghost. On another world, soldiers mutinied. They turned their weapons on their masters, shouting that the ghost would soon arrive. Entire systems began to crack, not from human hands, but from the fear he planted. Fear had become his ally, and the galaxy had no defense against it. The Alliance grew desperate. Meetings turned into shouting matches. Generals demanded massive fleets. Politicians demanded silence. But nothing worked. Every time they thought they had trapped him, he was already gone. Every time they thought they had silenced him, his voice returned stronger. And always the attacks continued. A fleet station here, a convoy there. Always fast, always deadly. Always leaving survivors who carried the story. The Ghost of Earth was everywhere and nowhere. In the ruins of his city, the survivor stood before his machines. Holograms of destroyed fleets glowed around him. He whispered to the dead, "This is only the beginning." The drones circled above, their red eyes burning like stars. He raised his hand, and the machines hummed in answer. His war was no longer for survival. It was for vengeance, and vengeance had no end. For centuries, the galaxy believed humanity was finished. Now one man reminded them what humans truly were. Not victims, not forgotten, but predators who refused to die. The ghost of Earth had begun his revenge, and the galaxy trembled, knowing the worst was still to come. The galaxy was on fire, fleets destroyed, colonies rising, fear spreading like a plague. The ghost of Earth had become more than a man. He was a storm, a shadow, a legend that no one could stop. The Alliance gathered its greatest army. Hundreds of warships, the strongest soldiers from a dozen species. They swore this would end. They swore they would erase the ghost once and for all. The largest fleet in centuries rose into the sky, engines burning like suns. Every soldier told themselves this was just one human, one man alone. How could he stand against them all? But in the ruins of his city, the survivor was waiting. He had prepared for this moment. Every attack, every strike, every rumor was part of his plan. He wanted them here all together. He wanted the galaxy to watch. The fleet descended, filling the sky with fire. The ground shook as they landed troops. Thousands of soldiers marched into the ruins, weapons ready. The commander of the fleet raised his voice. "Human," he shouted, "this ends now." The survivor stepped from the shadows, calm and unshaken. His cloak moved in the dust, his scars lit by the glow of old machines. He looked at the army before him. So many, so strong, but his voice was steady. "You think you came to end me," he said, "but you came to awaken something greater." He raised his device, and the ruins roared. The earth split open, revealing vast chambers beneath. Lights blazed, machines stirred. Not just drones, not just weapons, but rows of pods glowing with blue light. The soldiers stared, their courage breaking. Inside the pods were figures, human figures. Not one, not 10, but thousands. Gasps spread through the army. It was not possible. Humans were extinct, and yet here they were, preserved, waiting. The survivor's voice thundered across the ruins. "You thought you killed us, but we were never gone. You thought you erased us, but we endured. You thought you ended humanity, but today, humanity begins again." The pods opened, and one by one the figures stepped out. Clones, soldiers, children of a forgotten war. Their eyes burned with the same fire as the survivor. Their hearts carried the same fury. The army of one had become an army of many. Panic tore through the alien ranks. Some fired their weapons, beams striking the new humans. But the humans did not fall. They fought with the strength of legends. Every strike was precise, every movement like fire and thunder. The ghost of Earth stood at their front, leading them. Not a myth now, not a shadow, but the return of an entire species. The battle raged, screams filling the air. Ships exploded in the sky. Drones tore through formations. The ruins shook with fire and steel. But the humans did not break. They moved like one storm, one fury, one vengeance carried across centuries. The alien commander fell to his knees. He looked at the survivor, blood on his lips. "You cannot win," he gasped. "The galaxy will never allow it." The survivor's eyes burned like suns. "The galaxy has no choice," he replied, "because we are human, and we are back." The commander fell silent, his body sinking into the dust. The battlefield burned, the sky filled with wreckage. And in the center of it all stood the survivor. Not alone now, but surrounded by his people. Humanity reborn. He lifted his gaze to the stars. His voice carried across hidden channels, across systems, across every world that still listened. "Remember this day," he said, "the day you learned that humans do not die. We rise, we fight, and we return. We are impossible to erase. And now you will pay." The galaxy trembled. The age of silence was over. The age of humanity had begun again.